Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mosh Talks. New episodes dropping every single Tuesday on notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel. I am your host, Beez. Thank you for being here. I'm really going to try and keep the intro to a minimum because this week's lineup is so stacked and we've got so much to get through. So, Corey Taylor's going to be here. Yes, indeed he is. The Slipknot frontman's going to be talking about his solo album that's now finished, Slipknot's Lost album. He also talks about a movie script that he's finished during lockdown. Loads of exclusive chats. We ran for half an hour, so stick around. That is coming up first. Robb Flynn from Machine Head is going to be here. It sounds like we're going to get new Machine Head music very soon, so you can hear about that and get his views from the actual front lines of the Black Lives Matter protests. He was out on the streets and he tells you all about that in our chat coming up. Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence is going to be here. We talk about their new album, Becoming the Hunter, and what's been a pretty tricky few years for that band, and something else cool that I'm going to announce very soon. JB Morgan from the mighty Code Orange is here, and he's going to be telling you exactly why he believes that Code Orange are the best band on planet Earth right now. And as if that isn't enough, Dino Cazares is going to be here. So Fear Factory's absolute landmark album, Demanufacture, turned 25 this weekend just gone, and Dino's going to be here. We do a full chat all about Demanufacture. It is a wicked time, and it is coming up a little bit later on Mosh Talks with me, Beez. Okay, one more thing before we roll into the interview. I know you want to get to Corey Taylor. I want to get there too. But this Saturday, so not Friday like we usually do it, on Saturday, there is going to be a live stream, and it is going to be a full set from Suicide Silence from the You Can't Stop Me tour, June 19th, 2015 in Orange County, California. That whole live set is going to be streamed on notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. for my mates back home in the UK, at 11 p.m. in Central Europe this Saturday. Suicide Silence live from Orange County, California in 2015, only on notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel. Okay, since Mosh Talks was very first announced, I've been waiting to get this guy on because Corey Taylor is a man of unbelievable and many talents. And when we do these chats, he reaches into his bag of tricks, and I genuinely never know what he's going to talk about. I mean, the fact that he has finished a movie script during this lockdown kind of tells you everything. I don't want to throw too many spoilers out there, but a lot of chat about the solo album, a lot of chat about Slipknot and their set lists, what was planned for Notfest and what we can expect in the near future from Slipknot. Lots going on in the world of Corey Taylor. So I am Beez, this is Mosh Talks, and our headline act this week, the one, the only, the great, the magnificent Corey Taylor. The boss is here. Corey Taylor, how you doing, man? How has lockdown been?
It's been long, dude. I'm like,
hasn't it just?
Losing my mind. But obviously, and we're going to talk about it, you know, I found things to keep me preoccupied. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm gagging to get outside. I'm tired of this.
I know. Me and my wife went for a meal at the weekend, and it was the first time that we've gone out in like 3 months. Yeah, man, it had to be done. So we'll get to all things that have been keeping you creative and stuff. But one of the big bits of news that came in the last couple of weeks is you're going to be doing In Search of Tomorrow, which is an 80s sci-fi documentary. Now, when I think about 80s sci-fi, I think about it through the filter of my age. So I think like batteries not included, short circuit, maybe right, weird science and some things like that. When you think of 80s sci-fi, what comes to mind?
I mean, obviously there's the usual suspects. I mean, you've got Empire came out in 80, Return of the Jedi came out in 83. All of the Star Trek movies, and then you've got stuff, everything from, you know, the Alien trilogy to, or not, you can't even call it a trilogy anymore, can you? You got to call it like the quadrilogy or whatever the hell it is. all the aliens, obviously aliens on. You've got stuff like, oh man, what was that? There was this amazing sci-fi movie that Dennis Quaid was in with Louis Gossett Jr. and they played uh, opposing sides in an intergalactic war, and it's almost like a Robinson Crusoe tale. And they get stuck on this planet together, and they end up kind of forming this weird alliance and friendship. Like, it's really, really good. It didn't do great at the box office, but it was one of my
Right.
favorite movies that I had ever seen. Like, and I just remember watching those when I was a kid, when I was younger. So my knowledge of 80s sci-fi especially goes above and beyond everything from Galaxy of Terror to Battle Beyond the Stars, which used a lot of the same props. Man, it was pretty crazy.
Like when you said Dennis Quaid, I thought you were going to say Inner Space for a minute.
No, but that's a great movie too, man. Like him and Martin Short were so
Yeah.
good together. And I remember that was on like every other day on HBO. So I grew up on that and watching that and just, laughing my balls off. It was great.
And so you did the retro horror one as well that was based on 80s horror. I wanted to ask you, because I had Spencer from Ice Nine Kills on a couple of weeks ago, who's a big horror nut as well.
Right.
We were talking a bit about where horror is at the moment, because it feels like horror is really smart and really great at the moment. Even in the last couple of years, Hereditary, Midsummer, Us,
Right.
Get Out, Mandy, there's been some wicked stuff. What's your take on where horror is right now, Corey?
I mean, the great thing is the creativity is really coming out. I know a lot. I'm friends with a lot of like lower budget directors, creators, and they're loving it right now because this uptick in smart horror has allowed a lot of people to not only greenlight a lot of stuff, but do it in a way that they've remembered the 80s formula where you pump up the creativity but you keep the budget low. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You see it with Bloomhouse all the time, but the Bloomhouse, they'll take a great idea and you throw a little bit of money at it and it returns 20-fold. And that's kind of why 80s horror was so great, was because you could do so much with such little money. You had to use your imagination. So when a lot of big budget horror doesn't do anything for me and never has, because it's almost like they don't have to try. Like they're thrown money and they just go, oh, okay, just do that, whatever. And money doesn't always solve everything. So I think it's honestly a great renaissance for the creativity involved in horror right now.
Have you got anything more planned from an acting point of view? Because, when these Bloomhouse movies come, I swear there must be a Corey Taylor-shaped part out there somewhere.
I mean, the cool thing is that I've had a handful of talks, because I've written a couple of horror movies that I'm trying to pitch right now, script wise. One of which was an idea that I've got called Zombie versus Ninja, which was really cool. And then I've got another one that I just finished that I actually started 10 years ago, and then the quarantine actually allowed me the opportunity to finish the damn thing. So I've got that one that I'm actually working right now. So I've got a couple of movies that I just did not about a year ago that are kind of waiting to be put out. And if the right roles are there, I'd love to do it. But right now I'm actually more into writing and creating new ideas and trying to push that and see if I'm any good at that. I might suck, but at the same time, you never know.
Zombies versus Ninja sounds like it might be going down the slightly comical route. Is that?
No, it's exactly what you think it is. Like, and there's some now. A lot of the stuff that I write is going to have like the dialogue is obviously going to have a comedic tinge to it. A lot of smart asses, a lot of people stuck in situations where they're like, "Wait, is this really happening?" But other than that, when it comes to the horror, I am right on the page. I want it violent. I want it messy. I want it gross. I want it practical effects, shooting fake blood all over the place. So it's, the story that I wrote is like ton of action, a lot of great dialogue. It's an ensemble cast. And it's just something where you basically throw the kitchen sink at this crazy idea and see what happens. I've actually got an idea for a trilogy with it.
Amazing. Right. Well,
Yeah.
to be continued on that front then, because
Right.
people are going to get the arse with me if I don't start asking you music things soon.
Right.
Corey, you've been creative during lockdown. Where has that creativity taken you, and in what avenues or what projects? Because it could be a million different things when you open that door.
Right. Well, I threw down the gauntlet and I recorded my first solo album, and it's really, really good, man. It's something I was planning to do anyway next year when I got off the road with Slipknot, and obviously, best laid plans, just done and done. But I figured if this was the time to do it, why not try and do it? So me and my band quarantined. We social distanced for about 2 weeks, including our producer Jay Rustin, who I worked with, and
Killer.
yeah, and the people at the studio that I recorded at, which was Kevin Chirko's hideout here in
Cool.
Las Vegas. Yeah, so we rehearsed for about a week. This was stuff that we had been working on for a while, and this is stuff that I had written as early as the last Slipknot tour, and as far back as there's a song on here that dates back to when I was in high school. So that tells you how long I've been sitting on a lot of this material. And it's just stuff that I've kind of had floating around me that didn't really fit with either band, man. It was a different energy, a different vibe, and just something where the more people asked me if I was ever going to do a solo thing, I started going, well, I kind of know what it would sound like because I've got all these songs that really never had a home anywhere else. And lo and behold, boom, we went in, we recorded 98 to 99% of the music live in the studio. The only thing we overdubbed was vocals and piano and some acoustic. And we did 25 songs in 2.5 weeks. And
how many of those 25 are you anticipating making the record?
13. Well, you got to remember,
right.
We did 13 originals. We recorded 7 covers, and then we did 6 acoustic versions of the originals that we put together. So, or excuse me, 5. I can never keep that straight. It's 6 and maybe 6 and 6. I can't remember. All I know is that we did an insane amount of work in 2.5 weeks, something that we thought was going to take 2 months, and we destroyed it. I mean, we were doing a song a day, and we got done, and we were like, okay, what the hell are we going to do now? I mean, everything's come together so quickly that it's crazy. Yeah, and it's everything that I wanted it to be. There's some Slade in there. There's some Johnny Cash. There's some Alice in Chains. There's some, big choruses, fun rock, just huge solos. I mean, it's incredible, And I actually 2 years ago started teaching myself piano just so I could record this song that I wrote for my wife. And I was able to play it and record it. And it's really good. It's probably one of the best things I've ever written.
Man, there's so much to chew up there.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I'd kind of seen the news floating around that there was this song that's something that you'd written since high school. Now, you would have written so many songs in that time that made it to records, that didn't make it to records, that made it to Slipknot records, Stone Sour records, whatever. How does something like that stick around, and how does it make it all this way?
You know how it does? I've kept almost every notebook of ideas that I've had since I first started really writing songs, since I was about 15 or 16, So I've got stuff dating all the way back then, just sitting in boxes. And every once in a while, you know, the grand hoarder that I am, I'll start going through stuff thinking that I'm going to throw it away. And I go, nah, I can't throw that away because it's, you know, maybe this is going to be a song someday. And lo and behold, you know, I kept finding this notebook, and I still got it downstairs, that had the first verse, at least the first verse, and the start of the second, for a song called well, I won't give the title away yet because I'm waiting to do that. But and
my eyes gave me away.
I know, right? I was like, oh, it's so close. But then I started, you know, and then you know, I'd always remembered how it would start, and I was like, well, where would it go from there? And it was actually the first song that I really put together for this. I finished it finally after, you know, 30 years. I finally finished this song, and it's killer. Like, everybody who hears it, they get flashes of, you know, there's a riff in it that feels almost like Pantera in a way, but then there's this overall vibe of the Charlie Daniels Band, which is really, really cool, you know. And it's just, yeah, so it's a mover, man, and it's really, really good.
And when you start saying all these different influences, when you've got a record that is as eclectic as this, have you picked out a song that's going to be the song that we're going to hear first?
Yeah, well, actually, there's two songs that we're going to release first. They're both, the overall vibe of this album is fun, is party. Just, you put this on when you want to feel good. You know what I'm saying? So there are actually two songs that we're thinking about releasing at the same time. There's one that is the overall crusher single, really great, good, huge chorus, big vibe, you know. And then there's another one that is just as fun on the completely other end of the spectrum that people are going to hear and they are going to lose their minds, dude. It's like, the way I've been looking at it is, it's like a futuristic throwback. Like, everything on this album is a hybrid of all of these different genres that I'm like really into, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a contemporary vibe on, you know, it's a modern take on vibes that people have heard before, and yet I've taken them and kind of thrown them through this crazy filter to see what we get, you know. And it's everybody who hears it is just blown away. So I'm really, really stoked.
Do you think that, like, so those of us that have been to a Corey Taylor and Friends show, because, like, no shitting at all, like, I've been here for 3 years now, and that night that you played the Roxy is one of the best nights out that I've had in the 3 years I was here. Like, everyone that was there was so into it. Such a, like, you know what those areas are like. They can be really fuddy-duddy, but everyone was throwing down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly that. So, was like, it doesn't surprise me so much that fun is at the forefront of it. The song for your wife, though, it feels weird to be talking about, like, more personal, because we're coming off of "We Are Not Your Kind," which to me is the most personal lyrics that you've ever put in a Slipknot record. So to be kind of going even more personal in a different way, is that the vibe of the last couple of years? It feels like you're in a good place.
Yeah.
But, like, it feels almost like the Darkness is the Slipknot record, and maybe this is where we go next.
This is definitely the other side of the coin, you know, like, so to speak, you know. That, you know, "We Are Not Your Kind" was definitely me purging the system and letting go of a lot of stuff that was still kind of clinging to me, that I'd kind of gone through for the last God knows how long. This is my time to rejoice, basically. This is my, you know, this is the sunshine kind of popping through the clouds, you know. And it's me basically being thankful for what I have now, you know, being thankful for where I am, being thankful for the people in my life, the people I, you know, that I still have, who are friends, who I've had for, you know, some of my friends go all the way back to high school. So it's like, it's a good feeling to wake up every day and go, you know what, I'm all right.
Does it
Everything's gonna be okay, you know.
does it feel super autobiographical before we move on to Slipknot stuff?
No, it's I don't know if it's so much
Yeah.
autobiographical. It's honestly, I mean, the album itself, there are moments that are very dedicated to people like my wife, people like my friends. But there's such a light-hearted approach to it, and there are songs on here that are absolute nods to my influences. There's a song on here that is absolutely a dedication to Bon Scott and my love for AC/DC in general. It's the whole album has such a great rock vibe. There are tinges of the Clash on here, which is, you know, obviously one of my huge, you know, biggest influences. There are tinges of all of the great 80s hard rock bands that I listened to, that I always took so much crap from people for in the 80s when I was listening to it. But it's still some of the best songs you're ever going to find, and I challenge anybody to prove me wrong, you know? So it's my nod to the people who made me who I am. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And it's a dude, it's a fucking party album. Like straight up great party album.
How far down the 80s hard rock road do we go? Because I take shit for Bon Jovi. Like, it goes further into like Nelson and territory like that. Where are your hard rock limits?
I don't really have any, man. I think, and this is true, I think that Wait by White Lion is probably one of the best songs ever written. And I will fight people on that because it's such, I mean, dude, it's pure junk food. The chorus makes you fat. Like you sing it and you're just like, it's so good. Like a chorus is a chorus, a song is a song. And that, it doesn't matter what year or who put it out. You know, if it's a good song, it's a good song. And people need to get over themselves, and I think they would enjoy more music more if they could get out of their own way. People are so caught up in their pretense that they forget music's supposed to be about a good time. Now, having said that, I'm also one of the biggest cynics on the planet, but this is me trying to lighten up as well and say, okay, maybe I'm being too hard and too much of an asshole. You know, I just need to embrace my inner song fan, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, to be continued on the solo
Yeah.
album front. So, of course, we were all ready to go for Knotfest this summer. Had to be pulled. I wanted to ask a little bit about set list choices because one of the things, I mean, the killer lineup and getting to see you and Code Orange in particular on the same night would have been ridiculous. But like. One of the things I was most looking forward to is more of We Are Not Your Kind making its way into the set. Was that the plan for this summer?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a continuation of the European tour, where we debuted a bunch of stuff, man. I mean, it was going to be like the big coming out for the album, you know, and really kind of rolling it out the way we had always, you know, hoped to do. Because, you know, obviously the first handful of tours, you just kind of want to tease it. And then once the album comes out, you give people time to really digest it. And for us, our approach has always been to include as much new material as possible so it feels, so people can see how it blends with the older stuff. You know, that's, everybody's done that. AC/DC's done it. Maiden's done it. Sabbath's done it. We no, except Metallica. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's because you want people to understand where it fits in the catalog, and that was the plan, man. You know, and that still is the plan because obviously, you know, nothing's canceled-ish. We're just kind of moving next year when everyone feels more comfortable and it feels safer to kind of go out and do our thing. We're coming out all barrels loaded, just ready to go. So that's still the plan as far as I'm concerned. As far as me and, you know, the talks with me and Clown have been, it's been really, let's just pick up where we left off and just give the fans everywhere, exactly what they've been asking for. And people have been asking for a lot from this new album. It's been a great feeling.
You mentioned Clown, so I've got to ask, what did you think? What did you think when you heard Clown was going to get his own podcast? I've been interviewing Clown. I've been interviewing him for years, and he's got such a crazy out there mind. What did you think when you found out that he was going to be taken to the podcast format?
Now, far be it from me to cast aspersions on people for talking too much, but it's going to be interesting to see if he can let somebody get a word in edgewise, because he and I compete sometimes to see who can talk the most. But the great thing about Clown, and people who know him will back me up on this, is his, God, how do I phrase it? His liberal use of changing phrases that we've all used for years, and basically bending them to his will. I've been keeping a list of phrases and things that he has said over the years. And we call them cranerisms, because his style with the English language is something to be admired. And the world is really going to get a taste of unfiltered Clown, which is great. I love it, because it just means people are going to understand when I put the book out. It's going to be amazing. And he already knows that I'm doing a book. It's going to be a coffee table book, and it's called These Words Mean Nothing. And that's his title, by the way. He came out of his mouth, and I said, that's the name of the book right there. That's what it's going to be. And like I said, I've been keeping a list for over 20 years now, and it is quite long, of just the crazy stuff that he has said over the years. Like the way he will change a saying, and yet it feels like he messed it up, but then he'll repeat it and be like, well, this is actually what I meant. And I'm like, oh, you're so full of it. It's amazing. His mind is so creative that it's going to be great to hear him talk.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've got to ask you about Look Outside Your Window. So is that an official title for the material that is coming that's from the same kind of sessions?
I think so, yeah. I mean, for the longest time it was called Her Voice. And then I believe that name was taken. You know, I was just kind of a contributor on that. You know, that was really Clown and Jim's baby, to be honest. You know, I would show up, and it was almost like we were making two different albums, man. I would show up and I would go down and do work on All Hope Is Gone. I'd kill myself on vocals down there, and then I'd wander up to the other house where they had a whole other studio set up, and basically work on songs up there. So it was really recorded in tandem with All Hope Is Gone, and it's some of the most creative music I think Clown, especially Jim and Clown, have ever come up with, man. I mean, they're so creative when it comes to stuff like that, and it would honestly, it would coax different types of styles and singing out of me, and different types of lyrics. Like, I mean, it was really kind of inspiring. And we've been threatening to unleash this on people for 12 years now. I'm not even sure when we're going to get it, but I know that when people hear it, they'll definitely hear that side that, especially those two guys, man, were able to bring to Slipknot. Sid's on it a lot. I know Paul did some stuff up there. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it had been around for that long. I mean, I guess the question that I wanted to ask was, with this lockdown period starting, was there ever the temptation to put it out? You've got this thing that's there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's done. I think it's been mixed like 4 times though. I don't know if Clown's ever going to let it go out there, you know, because he keeps going, well, maybe I'll have this person mix it. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Just put it out, you know? I know a lot of it had to do with the labels reluctance. Another part of it was, every time we talked about putting it out, we didn't want it to compete with the newest Slipknot album. I'm not really sure what the issues are right now. You would think this would be the perfect time to put it out. However, Clown's really been the runner with this, man. So I tend to trust his gut, and I know he really wants to put it out. I know he really wants people to hear it.
Okay. Final question then. This solo material stuff, are we going to hear this in the near future, or have we got to wait for it?
It's ready to go, man. I mean, the artwork's done, the band's together. Now we're just trying to find sneaky ways to play live. I mean, that's the tricky part, is really getting it out there. But I also feel, and I think, and this is a weird thing to say, but I feel like the protests have shown that people, when they believe in something, they put aside all that stuff, the worries and whatnot, and they just want to do something real. You know what I'm saying? So part of me thinks that, the people will do something like, go out and really support a cause like that. Maybe the flip side of that is people will want a good time, so they'll be more prone to come out for a show. Now, that's not, I hope people don't take that in the wrong way. That's just an observation. But if not, I could be totally way off. But I feel like we've all been cooped up for a very long time. We're very ready to start embracing life. At some point, we're going to have to make a move. And, I'm going to be there to entertain. That's it.
Who's drumming now? Marilyn Manson nicked your drummer.
Actually, it's Dustin Schoenhofer from Walls of Jericho. It's actually the same solo band that I ended up using in the Midwest.
Right.
With Christian Martucci. So it's me, Tooch, Jason, Zach, and Dustin. And dude, I'm telling you right now, the chemistry is ridiculous. It's one of the best bands, but one of the best formations I've ever been a part of. And people are gonna lose it when they feel this, man.
Mate, I cannot wait to hear the record. When the live show goes from Prince to Black Flag to everything in between, I know the record's going to be representing all of that. Corey,
exactly.
Thank you so much for your time today, man. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Beez. Good to see you, brother.
Amazing to have Corey Taylor on the show. So that solo album is going to be rolling out at some point soon. We are always going to reach out to Corey to have him on the show. So make sure you are subscribed to us wherever you are watching or listening to this show. All right, next guest, Robb Flynn from Machine Head is going to be here. And I spend a lot of my time online. I'm sure you do as well. So I get a general feeling on how people are feeling about certain bands and certain artists. And Machine Head have had quite a polarizing couple of years, and I've not spoken to Robb for a large portion of that. So here we go. We get really into it about where Machine Head have been in recent years. There is much talk of new music at the end of this chat, so make sure you stick around. And Robb really, really believes in his causes and has always had a large voice, and he uses that whether people like it or they don't. So you've been warned, all right? Robb Flynn doesn't pull his punches ever. So here he is, Robb Flynn on Mosh Talks with me, Beez. I am joined by the legendary Robb Flynn. Mate, it's such a weird time in human history to be asking how you're doing, but how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing all right. Quarantine is, I'm supposed to be on tour, but other than that, my life off the road is essentially unchanged. I mean, I never realized how much of a hermit I am until the world went on quarantine. And I was like, wow, my life is pretty much the same.
Have you been staying busy creatively during this quarantine period?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, just writing furiously like there's no tomorrow. That's all I've been doing. And it's been cool. In a lot of ways, I think that, there's been a lot of good things that came out of quarantine. Like I got a home gym set up. Me and my wife put a couch in the garage, and now we have like a date night every Friday and Saturday night where we just open the garage and watch the sun go down and drink. And it's like it's crazy because I even see people. I never see anybody walking around my neighborhood ever. And now I see whole families taking walks, and moms and dads riding bikes, or kids and father and son riding bikes, and little things like that. Yes, it sucks that I'm not on tour, but it's kind of forced me to like look at other things and just like, hey, I got time to improve myself and work on it.
So I'm going to ask you about being creative a little bit later on, but as we talk now, looking at your social media and knowing where we are at the moment, have you been out involved in the protests, Rob? Because I've seen some of your photography being, like, as always, from the front lines.
Yeah, I've been going to protests. I just went to a protest this weekend with my dad, my 83-year-old dad, and my 2 sons and my wife. And it was up in Sacramento, about 20,000 people. I did another one a few days before that in Oakland. And yeah, this is the time. This is a moment in history, and I really feel like it's important for people to get involved in this kind of stuff. And it's cool to post about it on social media, and there's a lot of people posting about it. Not a lot of band people, but a lot of people. And but I think it's a lot more important to go into the streets and stand alongside these people and make your voice be heard. They're intense, they're angry. The 2 that I was in were completely peaceful. There was no looting or riots or anything like that. It was just a lot of angry people voicing how they feel about the world today.
Do you feel like bands are scared? Because bands seem scared to express an opinion more these days in general. Like, I know that from doing my job. But with everything being very hostile and kind of not only on the streets that there's bricks being thrown at one another, like different people on different sides of things are taking really militant stances. Do you think that it's a tricky situation to be in a band and speak your mind, or is that part of the gig, is speaking your mind?
I mean, I think that there's a lot of people doing stuff kind of behind the scenes. I think that they're letting their voice be heard in other ways. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, like the blowback you're going to get from standing up for this stuff, or even posting hashtag Black Lives Matter it's going to be fucking, it's going to be a hurricane of blowback. And, at this point, I just don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck, man. Like, this is the time not to stand on the fucking sides. This is not the time to be silent. This shit's been going on for fucking years now, and I'm over it. I'm over it. Like, fucking, I'm going to say it. And if you don't like my stance or my opinion, or I lose you as a fan, fucking bye-bye.
Do you know what, Rob? That side of things, when it comes to you in particular, has blown my mind because, like, Burn My Eyes, your very first Machine Head record, is the kind of fallout from the scorched earth of the Rodney King beatings. You can feel that suburban anger running through the course of Machine Head from the very first record. So I'm always like, who woke up and realized like where Rob was at, like, be it politically or mindset or whatever the fuck that people want to say?
It always blows my mind. Like, we've been singing about this, most of the lyrics to Burn My Eyes were written in 1993. I was in the protests for the Rodney King riots. I remember driving around Oakland and Berkeley. I had a mountain bike. I didn't have a car at the time. And I just rode literally straight into a riot. Like, I just wanted to be a part of this moment in history. And it was crazy because there was a lot of peaceful protesters. There was a lot of people trying to loot. I mean, I had gangbanger dudes taking swings at me, trying to steal my bike. Then I had the police swinging batons at me, trying to hit me. I mean, it was fucking shit was on fire. Like, it was crazy. And you know, like, the way that I grew up, my father, you know, joined the Army at 18, served his full term, you know, honorable discharge and everything, and immediately came out. And this is the height of the Vietnam War, and he immediately went into protesting the Vietnam War after just finishing his service. So that was my introduction to that. Yes, you can be a patriot. Yes, you can serve your country, but then you can turn around and, you know, protest what you don't feel is right. And, you know, that had a powerful effect on me. I mean, he'd take me to think he marched in the civil rights. You know, he marched against Vietnam. You know, he even to this day, like 4 years ago, him and I went on a protest. You know, it was the women's march that happened, you know, and it was amazing, and, you know, filled me with an incredible sense of pride to be marching just this weekend with my 83-year-old dad.
Yeah, like, let's talk Machine Head as well then, because when I think about the last couple of years, like, yeah, it's been a weird part of human history, but in thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I was like, Machine Head have had a really weird few years, no matter what way you slice it up. So there's the obvious about Phil and Dave, but like, you've had your biggest song to date on Spotify, and yet it's a song that seems to split opinion with the fan base.
Right.
You quit playing festivals and have been playing 2.5 year sets. Like, when you look at the last couple of years, like, you've done almost everything entirely differently and on your own terms. How do you look at it all, like, now that we're in 2020?
I'm proud of the choices that we made, as far as, you know, like Evening With and not doing festivals. I mean, it's seriously been the best thing that it's the best choice we ever made. And it was an incredibly hard choice to make, because the money from festivals is so hard to resist. And the allure of playing to a bunch of people who, you know, for the most part, don't know who the fuck you are and don't care. You know, it's like a bunch of looky-loos. And that's what I got tired of, man. I had no connection to the audience anymore. Like, it was just like playing to a bunch of strangers rather than a bunch of, you know, I'd rather play to 1,000 people who fucking know every word and live and breathe this band than to 10,000 people where 9,000 of them don't fucking care who we are. And yeah, I can get them to jump and A and circle pit, but it's like, I didn't get anything out of it. And, you know, I think that, you know, in regards to the songs and stuff, like, look, man, I am an artist. You know, I follow my gut. I follow my heart. This isn't a fast food buffet. You know what I mean? I don't serve what's most popular. Like, this is a boutique. If we're gonna, like, use a restaurant analogy, this is a boutique restaurant, and I serve you whatever the fuck I feel like serving you.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the type of food that I'm serving, then fucking go to the buffet restaurant. You know.
But I mean, to me, it's always weird when people feel like they have ownership over what they want you to do. Like, Mark from Suicide Silence, I haven't spoken to him yet, but he's on this show as well. And the two bands who... See, it happened to Suicide Silence. They made some creative changes and people turned against them. And I was like, that's distasteful. And when I saw it happen to Machine Head, I was like, now hold the fuck on. Like, whether you like this record or you don't, look at this canon of work, and how fucking dare you, was my take as a militant. You know my feelings on your band, right? What's it like being the general of all of that chaos?
You know, like, I think I'm not the guy that bashes social media. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think that social media has been one of the greatest things that has ever happened to bands and personalities and connecting with fans. And, you know, like, I think it has brought, you know, has it brought bad? Yes, it's brought bad. Has it brought a shit ton of good, absolutely, and especially in the connecting of fans and the culture and everything, especially like creating a culture around this band.
Mm.
I think you got to remember that there is a very vocal minority, a very, very vocal minority that, for lack of a better word, is intimidating to people. Nobody really wants to go all in and just fucking fight to the death on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever, TikTok, whatever the fuck. Like, there's a lot of people that just go, I fucking love Machine Head. I love Catharsis. I back the shit out of that band and everything that dude stands for or the band stands for.
Yeah.
And they just don't say it on social media. They come to the shows. They sing the fucking songs at the top of their lungs. They say it to all of our faces, and they just don't say it. And then so there's this other part that is very vocal on social media that you hear, and in some ways that kind of like makes people perceive that that's the dominant mindset of our fan base. And it, especially when you're someone who, look, I got a big mouth. I got a strong opinion. I don't really, I don't sugarcoat it. Like I just kind of say what I feel, and that draws, a strong opposition that can sometimes overshadow stuff. And that was a lot of it with Catharsis. I can tell you what, most people didn't even listen to Catharsis. I can see the streams, I can see the data, I can see the skip rate and everything. Like most people didn't hear it. They heard, they saw the Bastards fucking lyric video and they went, fuck that shit sucks, pussies, libtards, snowflakes, fags, whatever, and I was like, whatever, and I'm proud of that record. There's some amazing songs on there. I don't feel that any record that we've ever put out is perfect. Like I can always find faults with some song or two on the record, and that goes for the Blackening, Ashes, Burn My Eyes, what have you, but there's some strong stuff. And again, that was a reflection of, this moment in time that we were in. And, I stand behind it 100%.
So we're the latest thing that we've got from you creatively is Circle the Drain.
Right.
What I wanted to ask you is, when I boil up what you just said, and I think about the ups and the downs that any band would have over the stretch of time that you've been Machine Head, and those ups and downs when it comes to Machine Head are so pronounced, like on both ends of the scale. Where would you say that Machine Head are right now in 2020?
Where would I say we are as far as, I don't know. I mean, like we're in a pandemic.
No, you know what I mean. In terms of creatively, how you feel about the band
like
and its standing in 2020.
Like, I walk around in a fury all day. I walk around in a fucking rage all day. And the lyrics that I write and the music that I've been writing and all of it is very reflective of that. And, and even if the music isn't like super, thrashy or whatever you want to call it, the lyrics are pissed off as fuck. And, I think it's really easy. In fact, I think it's almost like, I don't know if it's easy is the right word I'm looking for, but as you get older in a band, it becomes the best option is to just shut your mouth and make middle of the road statements that don't really offend anybody and not really take a stand on anything. As opposed to when you're young and, full of vim and vigor and piss and vinegar and you want to just, give a fuck, like you just want to do it. I think it becomes, that becomes the logical choice. because why rock the boat? It's like what happens to you when you become old. Like people tend to become more conservative. They become more like they don't want to do things that might offend.
And if I might interject, because you have to be more diplomatic than I do in this regard. Like everyone's dollars are green, and that's sometimes how people look at things. Like
that's right.
If you take a stand, then there are people that will not support you. Whereas if you don't make any kind of statements, you're middle of the road. Then yeah.
And I'm definitely nowhere near the middle of the road right now. I am just in a whole other place, and I'm sure I'll lose fans because of it. At least for a little while. I think they'll come back, and if they don't, then thanks for listening for the time you did. But this is what I got to say, and this is where we have to go, and this is the place that Machine Head is at.
Is what you're creating at the moment, then, is it musically heavy as well? Because when you've added Vogue from Decapitated, like, I'm dying to hear the melding of those two things, like what you bring to the table and what he brings to the table. Have you been writing together, or have you been taking the reins on this? Like, how's it all going with writing the next full length?
We've definitely talked. I've co-written some stuff with Logan, and I'd love to get Vogue on board. Yeah, I'd love to get right with Vogue too. We're just kind of hammering out, whatever we need to do. But Vogue did play a solo on one of the new songs that we're going to be dropping pretty soon here, and yeah, it's angry, and I'm stoked about the direction that it's going. It's heavy. It's it's modern Machine Head. You know what I mean? Like I would say it's familiar to the last 10 years. It's not Burn My Eyes. It's still some other thing.
Mate, the reason my face lights up is because the first Machine Head show I saw, Logan was still in the band. The Astoria on the More Things Change.
Oh shit, nice.
So how on earth has it been? Like, I mean, it's one thing like him and Chris coming back for the Burn My Eyes portion of your live set. It's another thing entirely to be writing with Logan for the first time after that stretch of time. Like, how is that dynamic? Like, not only compared to how it was, but just how it is.
It's cool. I mean, it's different in the fact that we're not, he lives in Las Vegas, and so we're not getting in a room. We're not getting into a room that we rented and shared with 5 other punk rock bands like we used to. We used to practice in this place called the Emeryville Warehouse, where like it was just a fucking junky. It's been torn down now, but it was just covered in punk rock flyers, and this was the what we immersed ourselves in. It was we used to have this. We practiced right on San Pablo Avenue for a while, which is back in 1992 was just fucking. I mean, it was shot like just fucking the ghetto. We'd have these black homeless people like outside of the barred window, like listening to us play, and every once in a while we'd fuck around with hip hop songs, and they'd be like, "Oh shit, these white boys know this song," So it was like it was this crazy vibe, and so that's different because we're writing separately, but we're sending tracks back and forth, and I think with technology today, like we can do a lot of incredible stuff, and the stuff that we have collaborated on has been really cool. In fact, I sang on a Once Human song, and now he's got some riffs in a new Machine Head song. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
How's the relationship these days? Like, because that's an amazing thought to me. Like, to be that far away, from you not working together again. Like, how is it working with him again? What do you bring out of each other from a personality standpoint?
I mean, I think that we're both completely different people at this point. I mean, he's like super Zen yoga dude, like really, meditates every day. Like it's just kind of the polar opposite of where either of us were when, we parted ways in 97 or 98 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I'm in a way different place too. And so it's like, we just, we're kind of coming together because of this shared history, but we're just different people that have kind of went down the same path together in a weird way. You know, we kind of went, you know, got lost in the wilderness and kind of came back and found this path together, and it's pretty amazing. You know, same with Chris. You know, same with Chris, and even with Matt and Vogue. Like, it's just like, you know, these are people that are very much on the same wavelength. You know, Jared. Well, you know, we'd sit there. You know, Machine Head is 6 people now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
and
Mate, you're going to need boiler suits and masks soon.
I'm trying to compete with Slipknot now. So, but
so,
I mean,
but
I just think that we're so much on the same wavelength as people, and what we feel like as musicians, and what we want to say to the world and accomplish, and like it's pretty incredible.
Do you think we're looking at 2021 for a record, or do you think it could even be this year?
I don't think we're just really into. I'm all about dropping singles right now.
Right.
So, like, I really want to just have a consistent. You know, like, I think an album will definitely show up, and some of these songs may end up on that album. But to me, it's all about like just a constant stream of music dropping all the time and keeping fans. You know, the idea of, you know, we're pretty slow with albums. I mean, it's already been 2.5 years since our last album. So I just don't want to wait. You know, I don't want to wait another year to get music out. Like, the music's here, the music's done. A lot of the lyrics that I've written, you know, are very much now, and they need to be heard now in this moment. And, you know, especially with, you know, it's incredible because I do a podcast, and, you know, you do a podcast, you know this, like, I can record a podcast and have it up an hour later. That's fucking crazy to me that I could finish a song and have it up 6 hours later on all the fucking digital service providers. You know, like, that's fucking amazing. Like, never in history have we been able to do something like that. And we need to do more of that, you know, especially when songs that are written about this moment and these times, like, it's important to put them out now, not a year and a half from now.
So we are looking at new Machine Head music soon then?
Very soon.
Oh, right.
Sooner than you think.
I'll leave it at that then, because we'll be talking again when you release new music. So I've got to before I let you go, you got to tell me about No Effing Regrets. Like, there are certain people that when they say they're going to get a podcast, I go, and then there are certain people who say they're going to get a podcast, and I'm like, that's what's up. And it's all about people that are not afraid of pulling their punches. How have you enjoyed being on what I'm going to arrogantly call my side of the mic, Robb Flynn?
You know what? I really enjoy it, man. Like, I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. And, you know, I think my first interviews were good. And just as I've gone on, you know, like, I've kind of expanded like what subject is okay to talk about, and kind of like been fearless about it. And it's always, you know, sometimes you just get that guest that is fucking like, just, you know, they're the same way and don't pull any punches. And it's just like, oh my God, like, it's such a great feeling, because you're like, this is fucking gold, and you know it's gold, you know. And I'd never, I mean, I've had that from the other side where I did, you know, like, I feel like every time I do an interview with you, it's always a great interview. You know, like, you're great, you ask great questions, like, you're knowledgeable. And that's a big part of it, is like, sometimes people just aren't fucking knowledgeable. And that's what makes it like a drag, you know. But like, when someone, you know, I feel like this, because I've been in the music scene, I know a lot of the people. And even if I don't, I know about them because I'm fucking a geek and a nerd and fucking just absorb worthless information like that. And it's been really cool, man. You know, I've had some really, you know, like, I've had people cry, like, talking on my thing. I've had, you know, I've cried, like, had really intense, you know, bonding moments that I don't know if I would have ever had if I wouldn't have been doing a podcast, you know, like, you know, like, and that, just for that alone, it's been so fucking rewarding. And
what's so, like, you've got a captive audience here. What episode would you recommend that people check it out, so that, you know, to get a good idea of what No Effing Regrets is?
The Gary Holt interview was really good, from Exodus. The John Joseph Cro-Mags interview was fucking so intense. I mean, like, that dude's life should be a movie. It was fucking insane, like,
Yeah.
crazy shit. So I'd start there. Those two.
And Rob, we'll be speaking to you again. What I'm guessing is going to be very soon. Then, good luck with everything moving forward, and I'll chat to you when there is new Machine Head music.
All right, brother. Good talking to you, man. Take it easy.
I did tell you it sounds like there's going to be new Machine Head very soon, didn't I? So there you go. Robb Flynn from Machine Head. As and when that drops, I'm sure we'll reach out and try and get him back on the show to talk about new Machine Head. Let's see what happens, huh? All right, next guest is Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence, and it feels weird to have Robb Flynn and Mark back to back because Suicide Silence's self-titled album was one of the most controversial albums of recent years. The internet really turned on them, man. Like, let's not sugarcoat it. Like, there was a lot of shit thrown at Suicide Silence, and I picked Mark's brain on it and how that affected their new record, Become the Hunter. And again, don't forget, this coming Saturday, notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel, we are going to be streaming a full Suicide Silence stream. June 19th, 2015 on the You Can't Stop Me tour from Orange County, California. A full live set happening this Saturday, notfest.com, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. for my mates back in the UK, and 11 p.m. in Central Europe. All right, enough bullshit from me. Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence on Mosh Talks. I'm joined by Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence, mate. You are the most animated person that has turned up on camera thus far. How has lockdown been for you, mate?
Well, I mean, I guess the answer to why I'm so animated is I'm used to being in front of these cameras now. I'm always looking at my screen time is through the roof. Lockdown, dude. I've been live streaming. I've been just trying to put out cool shit to the internet because everyone's just leaning on the internet so hard. Imagine if it was the 80s. What the fuck would we be doing right now if there was we'd be stuck, or even just the 90s, really. You know? We'd be fucked. But I wish I could say that the lockdown bothered me, but in all reality, I've been super productive and playing a hell of a lot of guitar and trying to turn fucking lemons into fucking lemonade and vodka.
So you're live streaming. Are you on Twitch then?
No, I haven't done Twitch. I started a Patreon. So I stream for my Patreon. And yeah, just like have fun with it, put together a set list. I've been writing all these like really silly songs with members of my Patreon, playing songs that are like, I wrote a song that's 100% pick scrapes and dive bombs. and it's just a silly song. And then I sent it to a friend of mine that's like a classical jazz composer. And then he put all these crazy chords all over it and turned it into something completely different. I've been having fun.
That is sick. I'll tell you what, man. I'll put in the description below, like, you'll find Mark's Patreon so you can get involved with this kind of thing. I guess we should probably talk about Become the Hunter because you'd only just launched it when all of this kind of went on. This is, for a band that have had some important moments in their career, this record was an important moment for you, I think, even more so than ever before. Is that fair?
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, for anybody that's watching this that doesn't know, it's like, yeah, we took a hard departure and went down a very experimental route on our last record, which, yeah, I'm grateful for anybody that supported it and liked that record, but it was definitely a polarizing record. You either loved it or you fucking hated it. So coming back from a record that was like that, it was just like, all right, like, let's reach in this toolbox of what we know how to do, and let's make sure that every single thing that we're pulling out of this is exactly the tool we need to be using. But I also kind of think that because we knew what it was, when we were coming to the table to write, everybody was coming with the best stuff that they've ever really came with. And I'm the most proud of this record because I think, like, compositionally, like, the songs are fucking like real. I feel like we did a good job on them, and then it's just some of the best riffs and, you know, catchiest vocals we've ever written. And yeah, we got kicked in the proverbial nuts by the pandemic, because we were about to literally do a full world tour this year.
So how do you view the self-titled today? Because the last time I spoke to you guys was I spoke to Eddie just as that record was dropping, man. And like something that I really admired about your outlook, your stance, and your stance on the touring for that record was you really, really, truly 100% seem to fully believe in it. And I wondered what your relationship is with that record in 2020 as you look back at that time and how you view that art that you made.
Well, I have more opinions on what would have made it maybe a little bit more commercially viable, but it's kind of like hindsight is 2020 kind of deal. And I feel like where we were in our careers and going into that record, it was exactly what we needed to do. And there's a certain amount of artistic satisfaction when it's like you ignore what the expectations are and you do something that is 100% like experimental, avant, and almost instead of going towards the satisfaction of anything, you go towards 100% the satisfaction of the core of the band and everyone in the band. And usually the way that we would be writing music, like it's kind of, we all were thinking about is this going to be what the fans want? And that is a good tool to have as a band, obviously, when you are fortunate enough to have a fan base to try and satisfy. But when you do that for 5 records, once it gets to that point, you're like, let's just do something and 100% not even think about what people are going to think about it. And when we accomplished that, when we did that and we really immersed ourselves in that, there was this, we felt amazing about it. We felt so good about it. And still, I can listen to that record and really like it. And I think that one of the main things that would have maybe perked the ears a little bit more is, one, if we would have done a more modern production to it and it didn't sound like it was from the 90s and sound like it was live, I think people would have given it a little bit more of a chance. But I mean, who am I to say? Like it's I understand we are known for something, and when I think we've used this metaphor before. It's like if we're a pizza place and you call and you want to order your favorite pizza from this pizza place you love, and then what shows up is Chinese food, you're going to be like, what the fuck is this shit? So I get it.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to put you on the back foot, Mark, like, because no artist should ever apologize or be on the back foot about their art, right? Like, this is my take, my words, and not putting the words in any of your mouths. But we had Robb Flynn on the show earlier on. And they're kind of in a moment like that at the moment. So it's difficult for me to watch how people turned on your band when I think of all of the brilliant records that people loved you for before it, regardless of whether they liked the self-titled or not. So I guess the question I'm asking, did you feel a bit hard done by?
In a way, yeah. I definitely feel like it's hard not to take it personal to an extent when it's something that you did put your heart and soul into, and then but I still can step away from it and look at it from an outside perspective 100% and think about my relationship and how I'm a fucking metalhead, dude. And I was like, I've been a metalhead, metal kid since I was young. So if I was on the other end of this, I 100% can see how I would probably be one of those people that it's like, if my favorite band took a hardcore departure, I might be like, you know what, that record fucking sucks. But I'm also not the kind of person that's going to go on the internet and fucking make memes about it. So there's a difference about that, but it's a different time. We live in a 100% different era of music, and metal is a nostalgic genre, like we want our metal to remind us of something that whatever it was, whatever that energy, like let's just say The Cleansing for us, like people, if they listen to The Cleansing as their first record, or maybe our third record, Black Crown as their first record, like they want to listen to our music and have this nostalgia of whatever it was that they first heard of us. So like there's that's, and I understand that too. I mean, that's how I relate to a lot of my favorite bands. If Cannibal Corpse puts out a new record, I want to be reminded of the Bleeding, you know, like, or you know, so I 100% get it, and I it's almost like I have sympathy for the people that hated it. You know, it's like, hey man, I'm not apologizing for what I did, but yet this one wasn't for you. Like, you know, I recognize it.
Well, I wanted to, like, I don't want you to speak on behalf of him, but like Eddie's got his reasons for staying away from the press these days, and I don't blame him. But did Eddie take it particularly hard? Because when you say the meme stuff and all the rest of it, the tee-hee stuff that was coming out and all the rest of it, did Eddie take it really difficult?
I would say we all took it as best as we can, minus Alex getting drunk and talking shit on the internet one time, which I thought was pretty funny. I feel like we all took it pretty well, because we were prepared that it was like, all right, if people 100% don't like this, we have to be able to play this hand. You know, we have to, we chose to do it. But I mean, yeah, I think that it goes deeper with Eddie. Just, you know, he may have taken it a little harder, but in all, I still feel like he learned a lot from the situation. And, you know, if I don't want to word it wrong, like, I don't want to make it sound like, hey man, Eddie's a better singer than people say that he is. But the way that we produced that record, it was almost like there was this intention to make it so that when you heard it, it wasn't like he was trying to be this polished auto-tuned singer. There was an intention behind it. And I don't, and again, like I have a hard time saying, because I don't want to be like, hey, you guys just didn't get it. You know, I don't want to sound like that. I don't want to sound like that, but at the same time, there was a lot more intention put into that record than I think people thought. And I think a lot of people kind of thought we were trying to go more commercial or make a radio record, which it was like so far from that. Like we were making, we really did. We tried to make something that was like, we want fucking people to hear this and feel uncomfortable. And
with the best of respects, right? If you're going to do a record like that, like calling Ross Robinson is like calling Dario Argento to make a blockbuster movie, right? And just for my personal taste, because I love Ross, right? And I love a lot of what Ross has done, and I know Ross means it so much. But to my ears, like, again, just my take, I don't think Ross's production job got the most out of the talent that Eddie is. But that's just my take. The reason why I wanted to talk about the self-titled, though, is because it sets the scene for a new record. Because when you're put in a position like that, and you've gone through what you've gone through, when it comes to writing a new record, I really enjoyed that there is still experimental stuff on here, because it means that Suicide Silence didn't tuck their tail between their legs and start writing records just for the masses because that's what they want. You're not McDonald's, you're not serving hamburgers, you're artists writing art. And I was glad that, was it important to keep some experimental stuff in there, almost as validation for being an experimental band, not just a band doing You Only Live Once again and again?
Right. I think that it happens naturally. I think that you know, I feel like we still, when we approach a record, there is certain things that we want to put into the record and make sure that where we are as artists, or as where we are as artists. You know, sometimes calling yourself an artist is so funny. But
it's my fault. I've opened that door. Sorry, Mark.
It's okay. It's okay. I feel like it happens naturally, and the songs that are on Become the Hunter that still hold that experimental flame, those were the songs that took the least amount of work and the least amount of thought. And I feel like when it comes to us as a deathcore, death metal band, and the extreme sides of our music, that takes more work for us because we've done it so much that we are so much more particular with what is heavy and what is brutal and what is that, maybe what people expect of Suicide Silence, what that sound is. That takes more work for us than the experimental stuff, because if we're in a room together and we're all of a sudden Garza starts playing a riff that he's never played before, and I'm like, oh, I like that riff, what if we do this? And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, we're like falling down this 100%, like everybody's putting in these kind of new ideas. Usually we're like, wow, that's never happened before. These are new sounds. And we're really happy with the way that things kind of come together. Like the Scythe, Serene Obscene, Skin Tight, all those songs were written in a day's time, like if that. It was like, all right, music is done for that. That just fell out of us. That felt great. Same thing with songs like, off of No Time to Bleed, like Disengage to us was semi-experimental. Like it was more ambient and had this different vibe to it. That song was written in like 45 minutes. Like, so that there's this, sometimes this odd groove that we get in, that's what we're always looking for. Yeah. And maybe Self-Titled, where we were at that point, was kind of, we were looking for that feeling all the time, which was, it's a hard thing to find.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, right, that AC/DC life ain't for everyone. Like, I can listen to 50 AC/DC records. I love the sound of AC/DC. Like, I never want them to. Right. I don't. I don't want to have a dub drop in the middle of an AC/DC song. But like, that's who they are, and that's what they do, and good for them. But for you guys, I understand if it's like, right, I mean, I had this conversation with Winston from Parkway Drive a couple of weeks ago. Once you've done like a thing for long enough, it's like what? Like it must, like, I'm not putting on my clown makeup to go out in front of you. Like, I've got to do something else. Otherwise I'm just, this becomes a job.
Yeah, well, and I feel like doing something and making that departure, it really does affirm what you are all about as a band as well. Because like once we were done with Self-Titled and we did the cycle and obviously saw the reaction, talked to numerous people, from fans to press, everybody, you obviously, you're acquiring new knowledge of what it is that your band, like how you are conveyed, like what people are thinking about it. So like once it was done, it was like, hell yeah. Like, in all reality, I'm super happy with the way that it all worked out. That's like, it's strange to say. I'm happy that is how it was, because I feel like it resulted in this new fire that came to us to write Become the Hunter. And then we didn't even really we wrote like 20 songs for Become the Hunter, which normally we only write like 14, and then 11 of them are on the record or whatever it ends up being. Like, we were so fired up that we just had ideas after ideas after ideas. And I mean, I feel like you learn most from, calling from pretty much any way you look at it, the Self-Titled record, people would consider it like a commercial failure. So like, yeah. I can 100% say, it's like we learned the most from, our most failed, go at a record. So
yeah. I mean, well, to kind of take it completely out of the walls of metal, like everyone said that about Green Day when they did Warning, and the next record was American Idiot. Go figure. Right. So I guess I've got to talk about you yourself as well. Like, you had a departure for a little while. In the middle of all this chaos. How do you view it now? And like, necessary?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would, maybe or maybe you don't. I wasn't speaking about exactly why I took a departure, but so Self-Titled record came out February of 2017. January 3rd of 2017, my dad had a stroke, and we found out that he had metastasized cancer. And I basically kept that real low key and didn't talk about this with pretty much anybody except for unless they were really close to me. And I toured and I did my best to maintain. We had this record come out, and it was obviously the reaction was what it was, and there was just it was a lot for me to deal with. And I kind of chose to give my family the attention rather than do a lot of press, and rather than, there was a lot of things with the band that I just wasn't able to focus on 100%. So when it came to the end of 2018, it had been basically a full 2 years, and we had just got done with the cleansing tour, the anniversary tour, and I just felt like I had to make this decision. Am I gonna continue on trying to split my life between band, which is normally 110, 50 million, 1,000%. That's what I'm in. That's what I'm doing. Or am I going to try to kind of play this balancing act? And yeah, I mean, my dad was dying, I didn't want to put it out there because he's also someone that will be reading metal news. And if I'm saying, hey, I'm taking a break from the band because my dad's dying, I didn't want to put that guilt on him,
Of course.
So I took that break quietly and let everybody assume whatever, oh, it is what it is with the record's not doing good and he wants to take a break. Like, that's fine. Like, I cared more about my family and my personal situation at the time.
Yeah.
So I stayed at home with my dad, and he passed away last November, while we were writing Become the Hunter. So, I mean, it was 100% necessary, and something that I'm more vocal about right now and talking about, what was going on at that time. Cause yeah, it's either the band has been, that's what I do. This is all I do. I'm 100%, guitar player of Suicide Silence. And when this came about, it was the first time in my life where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go on tour. I don't want to do pretty much a lot of the stuff that is taking me away from being able to spend time with my dad. So
is it I mean, it's got to be kind of bittersweet in 2020 that you've got this record that you're clearly very proud of, and you're gonna, like, when this bloody world starts turning again, you are gonna get to play it for us all. How does it feel to be where you are now, given what's happened with yourself and Suicide Silence? Because it is like, to see you happy, mate, like, despite all of that, like, is a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, well, the extremely, a fortunate thing about the whole situation is we finished Become the Hunter in the beginning of summer of 2019, and it was mixed and it was finished September, October, but there was just a couple things that prevented us from getting it out that year. So I got to listen to it with my dad, show him that record, work on my dad was a guitar player. My dad was a jazz guitar player. So I got to show him all this stuff, and my he listened to it and he's like, yeah, you guys did it again. He's like, that's an unnerving record. so everything feels as it should be, and of course it sucks that we're in a pandemic and we haven't been able to start touring or anything like that. But the amount of being able to be at home and practicing and learning new stuff on guitar, writing new riffs, and at the same time, just kind of, I mean, it's practicing patience and letting things fall as they are, and not getting completely knocked over by it, and just kind of planning for the future and figuring out what I mean, we wouldn't be doing this right now if it wasn't for everything that's going on right now.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked about the record, and really, once it all starts going again, it's going to be sweet to be able to actually go play new music. Like, we haven't even, like, that's something I'm just looking forward to. Like, we got new music we can go play. Like, that's
And Mark, like, we're going to show this 2015 show from June 2015 in OC on Friday on notfest.com. Mate, thanks so much for your time. And on a personal level, it is wonderful to see you happy, mate. Love it.
Thank you, Beez. Yeah, you too, man. Like I said before we started, I appreciate your energy. I've missed it. You're great all the time. You kill it, dude. So, thank you.
Don't go anywhere just yet. So, after we did this interview, Mark pointed out that Suicide Silence have now announced their virtual world tour. Basically, what this is that they are going to play a full production live show. You can buy tickets for it in your region. So dates are as followed. I'm definitely reading this off of a computer screen, so bear with me. Thursday, July the 2nd in New York. Friday, July the 3rd in Boston and LA. Sunday, July 5th in Norfolk and Las Vegas. Monday, July 6th in London and Baltimore. Wednesday, July the 8th in Atlanta and Phoenix. Thursday, the 9th of July, it's Stuttgart in Germany and Santiago, Chile. And Saturday, July the 11th, the tour will end in Chicago, Illinois. Okay, those are the dates. You can get tickets, check them in the description below. But here is Mark to tell you everything about just what goes into a Suicide Silence virtual world tour. So, explain to me what a virtual tour is, Mark.
Okay, so this virtual tour, we figured out how to make it so that in our web store, we can sell geo-fenced, meaning where you live depends on which ticket you can buy. So if you live in London, we have a show that we're going to be streaming just for England, basically, not just London. If let's say it's going to say Stuttgart, Germany, but if you live in Germany, you're the only person that can buy that ticket.
Right.
And we're doing a complete like world tour. We're making up every show that we missed for the US. We're doing South America, a lot of Europe, Asia. It's 39 shows, and not only is it a concert with full on production, we've got sick lights, we've got this whole stage set. We imagine like sketch comedy, Suicide Silence. We made all these skits. We have fake sponsors. We've got it's hilarious. And then also it's a fully like integrated Q&A session. It's going to be like an hour and a half stream each one. We can actually video call in people. We'll have moderators in the chat so you can interact with us while it's all happening. It's going to be fucking badass. Like we put so much energy into this, and we've watched what people do for their streams, and not knocking anybody's streams from their bedrooms. Like I'm doing that on my Patreon, but like, yeah. We are renting a full on sound stage, and we're going to bring an experience that is above and beyond what I've seen anybody else do yet, except for Fever 333. I saw their stream. That was fucking badass. Yeah. So again, I'm not knocking anybody. I'm seeing what everybody's doing, and we're just trying to contribute to this, like, where we are right now as an industry, and like how we can bring entertainment to people. And yeah, I mean, we're announcing it. It should be announced. I mean, I don't know when this is airing, probably right before the interview or the show. Yeah, more than likely. It should be announced, so we should have a link right below here for anybody to go check it out.
Yes, yeah. I'll put it in there. And I've got to ask, so when you go to England, did any of you try and do a horrific English accent? Because I get a lot of that here.
No, maybe when we first went over there, yeah. Maybe if we're in Liverpool, we try and talk like a Beatle,
You'll have to excuse me. I get very, very defensive about bands I like, and I love me some Suicide Silence. Their new album, Become the Hunter, is out now on Nuclear Blast Records. Don't forget, you can join Mark on Patreon as well. Not only is he a wicked guitar player, he's one of the finest human beings I know. So check the description down below for how you can get involved with Mark and his Patreon. And as if that wasn't enough, a full Suicide Silence live set from 2015 in Orange County, California on the You Can't Stop Me tour is happening on notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed. That is happening this Saturday, 5 p.m. On the East Coast, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. for everyone back in the UK, and 11 p.m. Central European time. That Suicide Silence set is happening on notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel this Saturday, not Friday like we usually do it. Okay. My next guest, I think when it comes to ambition, and not just ambition, execution of that ambition, Code Orange are not only one of the most forward-thinking bands in heavy music, they are one of the most forward-thinking bands in music, full stop, which is why Jamie Morgan in our upcoming chat makes a real point for them being the best band in the world right now. Whether you agree with it or not is immaterial. He believes it with absolutely every fibre of his being. And if I was to say something about Code Orange in 2020, subjective as to what the best album of the year is so far, let us know in the comments section what you think the best album of the year so far is. But as far as an album that is kind of unlike anything else you've heard in the world of heavy music or music full stop, you know, Code Orange and maybe a Rancy Pazuzu, but Code Orange would be my pick for the album that you absolutely have to have heard so far this year. So if you haven't heard their new album Underneath, make sure you go and check it out. Jamie Morgan, again, fiery character. I love his intensity. I love his willingness to speak his mind. And that's why our chats are always explosive. Jamie Morgan from Code Orange on Mosh Talks with me, Beez. I'm joined by, do I call you Code Orange frontman now, Jamie?
Whatever you want to call it. Let's go.
Okay,
Yep.
Code Orange frontman, Jamie Morgan. How's lockdown been for you? Because I feel like this shit has been terrible for everyone, but in terms of timing, it seemed like it hit Code Orange pretty hard.
I mean, yeah, it was tough. We've had to bounce back, but we've stayed creative, come up with a lot of ideas. I think the record release show live stream was a really cool thing that'll be remembered for a long time that we did. It was an empty venue. We were kind of the first ones to be able to jump on the whole thing and kind of set that trend going. So that was cool. There's been elements to it that definitely suck, but at the end of the day, our shit's not getting forgotten anytime soon. So it is what it is.
That thing with 856, the release show, was that planned? Were you going to do a live stream of that show if there were people there anyway, or was it like,
No,
we got to pull this together?
it was about one day we had to pull it all together, and it was a lot of people. 856, we had to get all kinds of people involved to figure it out. But Reba was kind of figuring out all the production aspects, and no, we had about 2 days to pull it off, and we kind of had to make the decision on our own that we were even going to do it. Like nobody really was, leading us one way or another. So we just rallied up and made it happen. That was it. No, but there was no stream planned.
So, like, in terms of pulling that together, how close to when the world starts turning? It's a weird time to be talking about touring, really. But when the world starts turning again and we see Code Orange back on a stage, how close is the production that we saw on that Last Ones Left show to what we're going to see from you guys? Because I know full well how deep the rivers run when it comes to your ideas and all the rest of it. And I remain unconvinced that we've seen all the tricks in your book.
Well, now we're going to have to redo it. But that was the tour. That was the first tour we had worked on it for like 6 months. I mean, that was obviously the first go through, but all the video content, due to the fact that like Shade and I make everything, every second of it, it takes a long ass time. So we made all the content for like an hour long set, and now we've pretty much used it. So once we go back, we'll have to make some new stuff, and hopefully we'll have more resources to do so. Cause we had, as always, we've had to do a lot of it very DIY. So hopefully by the time we come back, it'll be a little bit, have some more resources, make it a little easier. But yeah, I mean, we'll probably put a whole new show together, maybe some elements of that show, but definitely have plans for that. Yeah,
like one of the things that I was kind of most looking forward to it is I knew the production was going to be creative. The artwork from when the first single was revealed is all cohesive. It's all interconnected. Mm-hmm. But what I was intrigued about was your first performance from behind the drum kit being in front of literally the entire world. Like no second chance to make a first impression. What was it like as an experience for you fronting Code Orange in front of literally anyone who wants to turn on their console or their mobile phone?
It was definitely stressful, and it was pressure, but that's, it was just that moment. It was time to go. So we all talked about it. We were like, yeah, I mean, for everybody, I mean, we worked on a whole new lineup. You know, we had a brand new drummer. We had to redo the way we do all the songs. There's a lot of technical elements that go into it that we were doing completely differently. And yeah, so it was a lot of pressure, but that's what, you know, we thrive on that. A lot of people say that, but they don't show it. We showed it. So I knew that it had to be show 100, not show 1. And I feel we accomplished that. And when we're really out there, people will even get to see a lot more than what they saw. So
yeah, like, so when did the moment come that you decided to step out from behind the drum kit? Because I see you as someone who is very vocal about pushing things forward. And when I saw you on main stages and second stages, saying what you had to say on festivals on the run for forever, that message, when it's at the back of the stage from behind a drum kit, was that a lot of the thinking about moving forward from the drum kit and now fronting the band?
I mean, it really just rooted originally in the songs. The songs were too intricate to have any type of, to keep the Code Orange energy alive in the way that we were set up before. So pretty early on, we were like, we have to do something different. This isn't going to work. And then with that, you know, we hit the road in the middle of the record. We didn't do that many shows, but we got asked to do a couple shows with Slipknot in Europe. So of course we did that. And it was kind of like what you're saying, you know, there's a wall of connection that I kind of realized on those shows could not be breached. I think we took it all the way as far as we could take it, right to the line of breaking through that just based on quality. But I realized at those shows, this is the right move 100%. I just got to put it on my back. And I knew I could do a good job. I just knew I would have to work on it. But we have to change it up to be able to connect with these type of big audiences. So it was those two things kind of going hand in hand. The music really was the first thing. And then, you know, those shows kind of opened my eyes to it even more. It was like, we were doing well, but I know we had to put ourselves in front of people more in the way that, you know, I visualized ourselves, and they had to be able to see it. And it was the same thing with the record. They had to be able to hear it all. And so that was kind of the thinking.
Yeah, like I speak from personal experience and being quite an intense individual myself, but your natural intensity as a person seems to quite lend yourself to being a frontman, because I don't see you as the kind of come on everybody clap along, say hey 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 style frontman. How do you, or is there much of a change when it comes to being on stage and your mindset when you're on stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just different physically, you know, learning how to work your body in that kind of way. And that was my first go through at that show, but obviously I worked on it going up to it. And when we were doing the music videos and, you know, thinking about it a lot and just working on it, even just working on it in my basement, you know. I think it's more of a physical thing. What you do with your body is completely different. My mind is always in that spot. And yeah, I think natural, you know, I write the lyrics. I'm usually the one who's doing the interviews and talking, and it's a lot of my concepts, even though the way that they're executed and how deep they go, I could never even accomplish 1/5 of on my own. It really takes all of us, but it's natural in that kind of way. And they're the ones who said I should do it. You know, Shade was the first one to say, you just got to do it. You should just bite the bullet and do it. And now it's really fun. It really does hurt me right now that we're not able to do that, because I know, you know, it's gonna take a little more time, I think, for everybody to see. But I know we're the best band in the world, 100%, no question. Especially the way that we are now with the current lineup that we have, and I'm excited to get in front of some people and some other bands and show them that. But it's kind of a waiting game. We're doing as much as we possibly can. I think we're doing more than anyone on the digital front, and I think they're going to see a whole new step up, a whole new level of our band. Anyone who put our band in one category, as soon as they see us up there the way we are now, I feel it will be a different
Right.
I feel it'll be a different ball game. So,
well, I mean, let's get into it because I have not spoken to you about Underneath since you were in Nashville making it. When we talk about that record, and I say it's a complex album, is that a fair point?
I mean, I think it's fair in the way that it's layered and detailed. I think there are songs that are complex structurally, but a lot of them, I think it's the layering and the detail work, the painting, the design that is the most complex. There's a lot of, the heart of a lot of the songs is even less confusing in some ways than our past material, and vice versa. It has it all. It walks a tightrope. And there's a couple songs on there that I really feel like, and I know that we're going to continue to push, and there's ideas to push of certain songs I really feel like can go a lot farther than any songs we've had, namely Sulfur Surrounding or Autumn and Carbine, or even, Underneath's obviously got some traction, The Easy Way. There's a lot of songs on there that are bigger and less complex in some ways, even though the design is more complex than anything we've done. So I think the record has both sides of what we do, all sides of what we do, and that was the goal. So
can you tell me what your days were like? Because talking to you making that album and hearing that album and knowing the intensity of getting the record finished and all of those things, when you've got as many layers as you do, can you tell me what your days were like when you were burning midnight oil on this? Because I'm lucky enough to have been doing this job for a while, so I've got the chance to talk to people that have really had to push their nose to the grindstone. I remember Jonathan Davis from Korn talking about Untouchables, and it was just a night and day, like, non-stop operation. What were your days like when you were making Underneath? Because a record that sounds like this can't just be shit out.
And at the risk of, again, coming off bad, whatever, I don't give a fuck. I feel that the way we worked on this record, and again, from talking to people like Nick Raskulinecz and talking to Chris Verena and people who've worked on a lot of records, I don't even think it's comparable to the way other bands perceive the levels of hard work of checking into a studio for a certain amount of time. And, we were working on the record every day at home for a year prior to going in the studio, every day and night. I mean, there's a whole other record that is really just the demos, and it's the same, but they're homemade demos that have hundreds of tracks each on them, And then we made the record, and then we took the hard drive straight from the studio and took it home and worked on all of our own takes, and that's before even getting into mixing and layering and all that stuff. So, I mean, again, it doesn't really matter because it's all about what comes out. You can work as hard as you want, and whatever comes out comes out. But I think we lived in the record and built the record in a way that I don't think I think is hard to sufficiently explain, and would probably be better explained by other people that were involved in the process that aren't us, just for nature of coming off a certain way. But I think that we put a whole new concept of working hard on music to music. We weren't going to the studio and having our 8-hour days or whatever. It's 24/7 for a year. That's it. A year and a half every fucking day.
So I wanted to ask you something that I don't think I've ever asked you before, because it pertains to the Code Orange record. When you like shit, so when you're into whatever the fuck you're into, like, you're not, are you all in on everything? Like, are you the sort of person that will be like, watch a video that's like 42 Easter eggs you haven't noticed in Blade Runner or whatever? Like, are you deep about the art or the anything that you like?
Yeah, to an extent. I enjoy all that. I enjoy finding out about those kind of things. I enjoy detail work, but I told this to my girlfriend yesterday, much to her chagrin in a way, but all I care about is this. All I care about is this band, furthering this band, trying to expose as many people to what we're putting out there as possible. I don't care about anything else. It's not about the way I approach life or it's this. That's it. And I think the way we've been bred and come up in this very almost, cultish kind of family of constant insulation, constant togetherness. We were built like machines with one goal, and that's it. It's just to keep pushing the band further. That is why I know for a fact, no matter what is going on in this moment or that moment or the last moment or who's around or whatever, we will get where we're trying to go. There's no one who's willing to take it as far as we're willing to take it in that regard. So it's not about what else I like or anything. It's about this. That's it. It's about Code Orange. That's it.
I'll tell you what I meant by that. So this will make very much showing my age here, right? I'm doing some new gaming shit. So I bought some SteelSeries Arctis Pro wireless headphones. They tell me they're the best, so that's what I bought because I'm obsessive about audio shit.
Yeah,
right?
Okay.
So now suddenly I'm playing Resident Evil, and when a zombie smashes through the fucking window, I can literally hear where it's coming from.
Yeah.
I have also been caning the fuck out of Underneath this week.
Yeah.
Why I ask you about Easter eggs and all the rest of it is because there is layer upon layer upon layer here. And are there Easter eggs that people haven't even noticed yet that exist on that record?
For sure. Yeah. No, I definitely get what you're saying. Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, it's yes, to go back and re-answer your question. Yes, I love that shit. I think it's pretty clear if you listen to the record. We love that kind of stuff. It's layered with ideas that go back years. I mean, that go back to the old records, that look forward to new things, that go back to all the stuff we did in between. It's very influenced by the layering. Is definitely influenced by everything from hip hop and electronic music to video game soundtracks to movie soundtracks to television soundtracks. And I think that's definitely the blueprint for sure in terms of layering. And and I think that what was difficult about that is being able to keep that element but mix it with the raw, heavy, hard thing that we love, that is metal, heavy metal and hardcore, and feeling a band, So to me, it almost needed to be like a band, surrounded by, in this world where you could hear everything in the world, but you can hear and feel the band still, if that makes sense. Less, it couldn't be linear. And, I've said this before, but I feel like a lot of metal, and I really do love it, is like, a beautiful drawing or painting. It's flat, but it's got detail. And, this to me needed to be more multi-dimensional, It is like what you're saying. It is a video game. It is a movie. It is an installation that you're standing in the middle of. That's at least what we wanted it to be. But with the key being the songs and the choruses and the mosh parts and the hard stuff and the fun stuff is all still there. So maybe for some people it doesn't click that way, and I totally get that. But that was a main goal. We wanted to keep both of those things, which I feel like is hard to do and isn't done that often in heavy music. Normally people go more artistic. The songs get more artistic. They get very confusing, and there's not a lot to chew on. But we were trying to avoid that as best as we could.
I mean, I didn't think that I've been watching horror since I was a kid. I didn't think I've had this fucking record since January. I didn't think jump scares could get me, but the end of Erasure Scan the other night,
that one gets you.
Yeah, it really properly made me like, what the fuck? I've had the record for months.
That's a good one, yeah.
And I wanted to ask, what's the Open the Fucking Door from? The back inside the glass.
I can't say fifth.
Motherfucker. All right, I'll ask.
Wait, the fifth. Don't ask anybody. Keep it on the low.
All right. Motherfucker.
But it's a cool one though. Yeah.
Man. Just those little things, I think, are where this is showing its longevity. And you spoke earlier about the unit, and I feel like Code Orange is one of those bands where everyone brings something to the table in a very obvious manner, be it when you hear on the records or how you present yourself, in all of the facets, social media, like Twitch, whatever you're doing. everyone plays a role in making Code Orange
Sure.
what it is.
100%.
But I have to ask about Shades.
Yeah.
Because since forever, we're seeing quantum leaps in what is possible within his arsenal. And I don't think that Shades can even see the ceiling of what's possible for him yet, where he is now.
Yeah.
What has been your take on that, and how vital has that been to creating a 4D soundscape like you're talking about rather than a flat painting?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, obviously he's ridiculously talented. He just works really hard, and has a really good mind for learning things on his own and watching tutorials and learning. And he's got a great ear. And I think my job in the band is to take what he brings to the table and what the band brings to the table, and make sure everything balances each other in the right way, that we can create this world where all these things we love exist in it. Because I love, and he loves electronic music, but that's not what the band is, you know? The band is all encompassing. And that's, to me, what makes the band. You know, there's a lot of people who make electronic music, and there's a lot of people who make metal. And, you know, our goal is to fuse rock and metal and hip hop and electronic music in a way where you can hear all of it. So I think he brings obviously so much unique style and sound and concept, and he just does things that I definitely couldn't imagine. And I think my job is to balance that out with what all the rest of us are doing. And we all work together every day. So it's never like the reason why it doesn't sound like two things, in my opinion, doesn't sound like two different people making stuff at the same time, is because, you know, we're all always together. So it's all always mixing and it's not like Shade makes something and then they make a song and it's like, well, I don't really like, you know, we're all together, and that's what I think keeps everything in the pot. So, but yeah, he's obviously, I think he's the best out there. I mean, like I said, Chris Farana said he's a black belt, so you can't really get much higher than that. And I think people will see. We have more things coming up. People will see. It just takes time. You know how it is. And I'm trying to get more patient about it, but, you know, it's hard. It's hard when I know what I know.
Well, the thing is, like, it's interesting when you say about everything comes together to create Code Orange these days, because once upon a time when you were experimenting with melody, a bunch of you did adventures, right? Was there ever the possibility of the industrial side of things taking a turn for a project like that with you, or was it just always about, we're doing this cool thing, let's incorporate it into Code Orange?
No, I mean, we don't think about things that way. It's just as we continue to develop the identity of what Code Orange was. You know, we made the I Am King record and the Adventures record at the same time. And as we continue to develop, it just was realized, okay, if Code Orange is going to be as great as we want it to be, we have to put all of our time and effort into that. And not just musically, in every way, you know, visually, in the way we want it to be presented. So it was an easy decision to move on from that.
Yeah, well, visually is somewhere where you've had an impact this last week by doing NXT in your house. It warms my heart to see a band that are so steely in their being forward mark out a little bit. The Triple H relationship.
Yeah, he's awesome.
How did that come about? And, like, not the WWE thing, I think that's kind of well documented. You and Triple H, what is that relationship and how is that?
I mean, it's sick. I mean, I only ever see him when we're doing this shit. It's not like he fucking calls me and asks me what's up. But when we see him, like one time me and Reba went, they let us come to Madison Square Garden for like a Raw. And I seen him and Stephanie McMahon. We were hanging backstage. Literally, it's like us, Stone Cold. We were hanging with Bray. Bray was taking us around, so we weren't just like lost. But you know, we see Stephanie and Triple H, and we just walk by them because we don't want to bother them. And you know, they stopped us. You know, that's the way they are. So they're absolutely awesome. And yeah, that was fun this last weekend. That was fun, and it really gave me the bug. It kind of, you know, it just made me feel This is how fucked up in my head I am. So we had this great experience, right? And it was awesome. It was so much fun. And really, I just left feeling pissed off because I'm just like, fuck, we need to be out there, man. We need to be out there. We need to be out there. That's it. So
I can tell it's killing you, man. I got to ask about the rumor. Were you due to play a stadium for WrestleMania a couple of months ago?
I mean, I don't really know. We were definitely talking about it. I think it would have happened. The way they do shit is they basically hit you up like a week before. So I have no clue for real. We were talking about it. It was looking good. We left the tour. We left our tour date to go there just in case. And so I think it would have happened, yeah. But just another thing that didn't happen. But again, there's a lot of people dealing with a lot of shit, so I'm not bitching. But yeah, that definitely would have been something.
You touched on it earlier. It's one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about today, Jamie. But because Code Orange are a band that everyone looks to for creativity, how has it been during this lockdown period finding new ways? Because to me, where I sit, I think Code Orange have cemented that they are willing to go into areas that other bands haven't gone to look forward and to progress. And when you're given, when you're given shit all, you can still make something cool happen. Is there more of that in the pipeline, regardless of when the world opens or not? Like these, because I feel like you do a brilliant job of, if you are obsessive about your band and you want to know everything, you can invest time in the things that you put out and learn shit tons about what you do, like inside those ridiculous 12-hour days. Yeah. Is that something that is going to be part of Code Orange's DNA moving forward?
For sure. I mean, I'm sitting in front, I'm looking at it right now of a list of all the different ideas we have going on right now, all the different things we're planning on doing, some of the things we've done, some of the things that haven't panned out.
Spin your camera around.
The only reason I won't is because some of the shit we were supposed to do that didn't work out then. But we're full of ideas. But what I think says the most about this band is, and this is funny because this is almost counterintuitive to how we approach things because we try not to listen to what people say. But think about this. This is the gamut of what people say. You said earlier, the record's really complicated. It's deeply artistic. On the other end, people tell me we sold out, our shit's WWE, rock. Then we put out another song and it's too crazy for it to be on whatever radio thing or fucking Sirius radio or whatever. Then we do this. It's always both sides constantly. And that to me shows me that what we're doing is pushing forward in a creative direction that both sides of people, on maybe the more mainstream side and on the more street level, don't really know how to take at times. And that's going to make things a lot more difficult for us. It has always made things a lot more difficult for us. Other bands are able to exist in lanes that people, whether it's yourself or whether it's guy commenting on thing or whatever, can understand and see the way that they're going and see the path they're taking. And it makes them feel warm in their belly because they understand. They've seen it and it connects with them. You can't say that about this band. And so that puts a weight on our back to constantly, continuously, through creative exploration and pushing the boundaries, find new ways to bring people in and find new ways to show people that we're about everything we say we're about. Because if we don't for 1 second, we will be pulled down into the underworld. We will be forgotten. We will be used as a stepping stool by another easier to digest band who's a fuck ton a lot worse. That's how it works in this game. So we have clear knowledge and understanding of that. So basically what you're describing is for Code Orange, for some bands, it's almost a luxury because they can do it or not do it. And they're going to keep their head above water. For us, it's a necessity. If we don't do it every single week, every single 3 days, do something that people were like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
We're done. We're drowned because it's too many elements, too many different sides of critique and misunderstanding to put and package into a nice box for people that are in the music industry, and even people who are conditioned to the way that the music industry is, to get and to eat and digest and enjoy. So we have to push. That's it. Every single day, every idea, everything.
Was that a worry? Because I wasn't going to mention it in this interview, but like I know you had a lot riding on underneath, right? When I heard the record, I was like, if they need to be still Steven Spielberg, this is Zombie Holocaust. It really threw me for a loop because it's so complex, because it's so jagged, because it's so obtuse and difficult. But I come from the 90s where loads of challenging bands change things. And like even the name on the marquee comes from Knotfest, right? I bought Iowa the day it come out as a fan and heard that blast beat for the first time. And I know what it did to push my buttons, something that traditionally is something that you wouldn't necessarily associate with fans going, oh my God, because it's so extreme. I know what that feeling feels like. Is that the conviction that lived in your heart when you were making this record and putting it out?
Well, I'll answer that with a couple things. Number one, I'm never fucking worried because whatever happens, happens. I know that we are right. I know our art will stand the test of time. I know that we're going to, whether we become this giant popular band or not, we're going to make seismic impacts on heavy music and on the way heavy music is perceived and the way it's presented. So am I worried? No, I don't give a fuck about things that I cannot control. Where maybe you're like concerned about the record in that way comes from is a good place. And I totally get what you're saying, because you want, in your heart, I know you want people to be able to, you want something that's going to be easy for people. Here's the thing. The problem with this record is this. From your perspective, it sounds one way. From this guy's perspective, it sounds another way. From this guy's perspective, it sounds another way. There's not a consensus on how, if it's too complex, or if I've had people tell me there's so many like big, like WWE rock courses. I don't know about that. It's both sides. It's everything. So at the end of the day, we built the machine that we thought was the best possible thing that our minds could create in the most, not necessarily challenging, but the most creative that Code Orange could be, while still being very entertaining in a popcorn kind of way, So different people are going to take it differently. But I think, do we thrive and enjoy people not understanding? No, I want people to understand. But like you said, there were a lot of very complicated things in the past that people understood. And I think this is different, but I don't think it's any more complicated than those things. I think it's more deeply layered because we're in a futuristic time. We're in 2020. We're in a different era than 1997.
Yeah, of course.
But is it more complex? Are there more courses on underneath than there are on Iowa? Probably. If you put them mano a mano, it's different times. So that's something I can't control. I do believe Code Orange will get where it needs to go by sheer quality and sheer will and sheer belief that I know all these other motherfuckers, and I know they're not willing to do what we're willing to do. End of the day. So if I come up, like, I know to some people, and I totally get it, it comes off very self-serious and very whatever, but this is all that we have. This is all that we are right now. That doesn't mean that's how it's going to be forever. And we put not just our best foot forward, we chop our fucking foot off and give it to you. You know what I'm saying? We put everything forward. So I'm thinking of it in a completely different way. And to me, it's, whatever.
Last question then. Because I've been reviewing records post forever, and we've been talking about a post forever landscape because a lot of bands have taken influence from Code Orange. How would you react if someone took the underneath formula and turned it into fucking something that goes over the top?
I mean, here's the thing. What's the underneath formula? That's the thing. It really doesn't exist. They will take pieces of it, they already are, and try to incorporate it into their music. It's impossible to make a record that sounds like that. So it's even different than the last record in that way. I think there's so many elements that have to go into it. I mean, I know that, don't get me wrong, I want to make this very clear before, we get buried. The record draws from so many different things that I love and respect and have admiration for. The combination of elements cannot be recreated. So most likely what will happen is people will take elements for it, which again, I think they already are in some respects. It won't get noticed because they're just taking pieces of it, and they'll be able to use it, for their benefit. And I'm okay with that. I know that what we made sits in its own category by itself. Love it or hate it, don't care about it, think it's dumb, whatever. It don't sound like anything else, period, the end. The whole record, front to back, it doesn't sound like anything else. It can't be diluted in that way. That's part of the reason that went into the creation of it. And people will take pieces of it and use it. People are going to take jump scares, and they're going to take the way we manipulate samples and manipulate vocals and stuff. And yeah, and they'll maybe they'll evolve it. Maybe they'll make it fucking better. That's awesome. They're certainly not going to do the same shit that we did. And I think that's something that can't be said about a lot of things. But again, that's just my one man's very biased but true opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, you're more than entitled to it. Before you go, do Shades do interviews?
Does Shade?
Do Shades do interviews?
Yeah, he does interviews. I mean, he doesn't like doing it, but yeah, he'll do it. He does interviews that are more related to like gear and like technical aspects.
Yeah,
and he's good at that. I like doing interviews with him because we can go off each other. He can get into that, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, yeah, but he does.
In which case, like when we get to the end of the year and we're recapping records and all the rest of it, you and Shades come on and we'll get into it.
Yeah. Or you could just have him, whatever you want to do. That'd be great. I'm totally down.
Jamie Morgan there from Code Orange, and I think it's my job here to emphasize when he talks about Code Orange's creativity. Yesterday, after this episode goes out, Code Orange did a very special Twitch event with Shades from the band and Machine Girl doing this really cool collaborative set. If you can't get enough of Code Orange and their new album Underneath, make sure you are following their Twitch and get involved with all of that stuff. The videos that they're putting out and the live streams that they're doing are wicked. And again, Underneath is out now. If you haven't heard it, make sure you do. Final chat. And if you haven't heard this next album, what on earth has your life been? For 25 years, Fear Factory's Demanufacture has stood as not only one of the best metal records of the 90s, but an album within heavy music that truly sounds unlike anything else. Fear Factory and their particular style of attack with riffs, bass drums and bass, all the musical elements, all are heading in the same direction at the same time in mechanical fashion. If you think a harder-edged Rammstein, maybe you're getting close to it. But basically, Demanufacture is an album that has ruled for 25 years. It was such a blast to visit an album that I have been listening to for most of those 25 years and to get into it with Dino Cazares. I've been a Fear Factory fan since the 90s and I've never ever spoken to Dino as well. So this was a bit of a moment for me. So, Demanufacture from Roadrunner Records 25 years ago. Here's a celebration. I'm Beez, he's Dino Cazares, and this is Mosh Talks. Okie doke, I am joined by Fear Factory Shredmeister General, Mr. Dino Cazares. Dino, this weekend, Demanufacture turned 25 years young, and my timeline, because I only follow people with good musical taste, was full of people celebrating the legacy of that record. So your timelines this weekend must have been insane with the love for this record.
It was totally insane. On my Instagram, all I saw was just album cover after album cover after album cover. I mean, just kept scrolling. It was just so many. And I think that record has, impacted a lot of people's lives. It was definitely a game changer in the metal in metal in general. You know, it was the first time that people really heard heavy vocals with melodic vocals and syncopated drum patterns with guitar riffs. You know what I mean? So it was definitely a game changer, not only for people in their life, but also in our lives. I mean, it was we went to the next level.
Yeah. Well, let's go into. We're going to do the entire story of this record. So let's go back to Soul of the New Machine, right?
Okay.
Because that and Demanufacture are such different beasts. When you got to the end of the Soul of a New Machine cycle, were you creatively satisfied?
With Soul of a New Machine, at the time, yeah, you know, because it was pretty extreme, and that's pretty much what was going on at the time. You know, bands like Napalm Death, Morbid Angel, and all that stuff was pretty big back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. So we were trying to fit in that mold, but at the same time, you know, you could hear songs like Scapegoat, Scum Grief that really stood out. And that was kind of like more the direction we were trying to go in as we were, you know, creating Soul of a New Machine. Also, Soul of a New Machine was also a pretty extreme record.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't really get the melodic vocals inside a pretty extreme record. So we got a lot of backlash for that, believe it or not. A lot of people just weren't having it because, you know, we were extreme at that time, and we were trying to fit in with those kind of grindcore and death metal bands. So when those kind of fans heard that stuff, they were like, "What the hell is this clean vocals and this stuff?" But the same thing that people talked bad about us were the same things that people ended up liking overall, eventually liking.
Did it take a lot of courage to stay with that when you were getting when you were taking criticism for that new vocal approach, like when Burton was doing that? Like, was there ever a point where you were thinking about exclusively going one or the other, or were you always just going to stand by your convictions because that was what was best for Fear Factory's music?
Well, the minute that we stumbled on that combination, we were like, that's it. Because, you know, we were just, at the same time, when you're creating music, you try to satisfy yourself first, because once you love something, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to translate that to someone else. Yeah. And so once we found that combination, we're like, this is it. This is us. I never heard anything at that time, and no one has ever proven to me that anybody else has done that yet. So once we heard that, we're like, this is it. This is us. This is who we are. Now we just need to improve on it.
Yeah, there was when I think of what the difference, the biggest difference to me between Soul of a New Machine and Demanufacture is Demanufacture was so focused. We knew, like, it felt like you had a musical idea in terms of the mechanical edge. You had a concept, and that all bled into the artwork and all of that. But what I wanted to ask is, what was the moment that kicked in? Was there a riff or a moment or something when you started writing for the next record where you were like, this is it, we've hit gold here?
Well, I could tell you how we got there. You know, Soul of a New Machine had 17 songs. You know what I mean? That's a lot of songs. That's 2 albums worth. You know what I mean? So we threw everything that we had on our first record. Every riff idea, everything, blah, blah, blah. We just threw it in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, when we decided to do a remix EP called Fear is the Mind Killer. And I had met Reese Fulber, who was in a band called Frontline Assembly back in 1992 when our first record came out. I met Reese because he was on a record label called Third Mind Records, which was distributed through Roadrunner Records, which is the label that we were on. And I was always talking to my A&R guy, Monty Connor, and I always told him, look, I want to do remixes because I was always a fan of Ministry and Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that. And I figured, like, I've never heard like an extreme, intense band like that do remixes. So I hooked up with Reese Fulber. We decided to do remixes, and it worked out great. It was called Fear's the Mind Killer. It was the EP. Now that EP, when we hooked up with Reese and we did these remixes, that was when I first heard, okay, our music is going to work well with all these electronic industrial elements. Now, we always had that vision. Just back in 1992, we couldn't afford the technology to do that. So meeting Reese, he had all that stuff: computers, samplers, keyboards, you name it. He had it all. So when we went in to do demanufacture, we're like, okay, Reese has got to be a big part of this. And that's pretty much when we wrote the album, we were like, okay, we're going to bring in these elements as we were writing. So that was a big difference too. And yeah, we were like, okay, let's hone in on 10 or 11 songs, and we'll cut out all that other stuff that was on Soul of a New Machine and all that stuff. And let's just focus on better arrangements, better structures, and just, you know, obviously Burton C. Bell got better in singing. You know what I mean? He, you know, during Soul of a New Machine tour, you know, we toured for like 3 years in that record, and obviously we get better as a band.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when we were writing, we were like, okay, we were focused. Let's cut out all this extra stuff and just focus on, you know, each song individually.
Yeah, like
that's how we were able to do it.
You mentioned the electronics, which is fascinating to me. Like, being European, right? EDM culture didn't really cross over to America until this last decade. Like, we had rave culture and all of that stuff going on in Europe, which is why it's fascinating to hear you, like, with American ears, incorporating that stuff into your music. So like, how did you start to discover and learn to love rave culture?
Well, way back, I mean, we would play here in LA. We would mainly play like in East LA and South Central Los Angeles, where people would have backyard parties and we would play. But at the same time, it would be mixed in with a rave, kind of, you know what I mean? So it was like a backyard, like death metal grind, and then it would turn into a rave somewhere in between there. And then it kind of all kind of mixed together in some way. And we were like, okay, so that was cool. And we liked some of those bands, right? Some of those, you know, early Prodigy and stuff like that. But it wasn't until we hit Europe in 1992 where we were like, wow, it's massive out here. I mean, there's a place in Austria called the Arena, and we played there. And then when the show was over, it turned into a huge rave, and we would just stay for the rave. And it was like, okay, this reminds us of like all the backyard parties, but massive and just way more intense and better music. So we were really inspired by that. That's when we decided, let's do the remixes.
Yeah, well, this fascinates me, man, because like everyone knows the rap and rock thing, but the electronics and metal, and like again, being from Europe, I was seeing you in the press being put in with the Prodigy and with Pitch Shifter and all those kind of bands, because Fear Factory fit in a weird place when Demanufacture came out, because like heavy metal and metal had become almost two different things with when Pantera happened, right? But Fear Factory didn't fit either of those things. You were totally your own thing, and yet super successful. Like, was that vindication of putting the electronics in? And when you were putting those electronics in, when you were writing it, so before people had heard it, did you know that you had something?
Yes, we all totally knew that we had something. When we were writing the music, before we even went to the studio, we made demos, and it was like, wow, okay, it's really taking form. And we all heard it. And then it wasn't until we actually started to record everything and put it all together in the studio. And then when Reese came in and just added all electronic elements and we started mixing the album, we're like, oh my God, this is it. I've never heard anything like this before. Never heard, you know, those ripping guitar riffs, killer double bass, beautiful melodic choruses with all these industrial and electronic elements added. I never heard anything like that before. I mean, sure, there's guitar music. You got Ministry and guitar industrial and early 90s nails and stuff like that. But it was nothing like this, because we were just taking like, you know, all the thrash riffs and everything that we liked, and we combined it all together. and it just worked well. It became our formula.
Yeah, and you must have been super proud because no pressure, but Faith No More are in the studio next door recording King for a Day, Fall for a Lifetime. And quite hilariously, you had Bon Jovi on the other side of you as well.
What it was that was in Bearsville, New York, and it was a really cool situation because, well, first we started off in Studio A and we recorded drums there, right?
Yeah.
And then we had to move to studio. We had to move out of Studio A, and we went to the barn. There was a barn there, and we went to the barn. We did guitars and bass, and we did some vocals. Then we had to move to Studio B because Faith No More was going into the barn, and the reason why we had to get out of Studio A was because Bon Jovi was going to Studio A. So we were in Studio B, and Bert was doing vocals, and we were, listening to pre-mixes and stuff like that. And the engineer of Bon Jovi would constantly come over and say, "Hey, man, can you guys turn it down because your volume is leaking into our drum mics?"
Was that Randy Staub?
What's that?
Was that Randy Staub working on that Bon Jovi record with Bob Rock?
No, it was something Evans. I can't remember his name.
Okay, no worries.
I can't remember the producer's name, but it was the engineer that came over first.
Yeah.
First couple of times. And then the producer came over and he was like, "You guys really need to turn it down. We can't record drums." You know what I mean? They actually eventually left. They left.
Tico Torres was like, "I can't hack this anymore."
Yeah, they left. They left, and we made it on the Wikipedia page. They actually say that Fear Factory was the reason why they left.
That's amazing.
They couldn't record because Fear Factory was there next door.
So I want to take you into the concept and the feels and the things that influence demanufacture from the outside, right? Because people always go to Terminator 2, like, because you've got that opening on Zero Signal that's got that similar feel, and Blade Runner and those kind of things. But what I wanted to ask you is, what's some of the more obscure things that go into it that you don't hear people talk about? Because you were drawing from video games and comics and movies and all kinds of things to create this kind of dystopian sci-fi world with inside demanufacture. So what were the things that people don't point at enough that influenced the record?
Well, okay. First of all, let's go back to Soul of a New Machine, because we've always been inspired by those movies.
Yeah.
Movies, sci-fi movies, of course, Terminator, Blade Runner, Dune, all that stuff, right? So our actual titles came from those movies. Soul of a New Machine was describing the new T-1000 Terminator in Terminator 2. And I read a news clipping where they actually called it Soul of a New Machine. So that's where the title of the album came from.
Right.
Then there was a movie there in the movie Dune. There's a scene where Kyle MacLachlan sticks his hand in the box, and this weird witch is trying to teach him, like, fear is only in your mind. Fear is the mind killer. So we decided, because we called it Fear is the Mind. Well, Soul of a New Machine on our first record, we called it that because it was the birth of this new machine, new sound, right? It was the birth of this new sound. Fear is the Mind Killer I titled that, the two titles I came up with, Soul of a New Machine and Fear is the Mind Killer. And Fear is the Mind Killer was because we knew that we were doing something different. It was kind of, scary at the same time, that we were combining all these things. We didn't know if people were going to like it or not. So we were like, the fear is only in our mind. So release that fear, just forget about it, and just release it as it is, for what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why we called it Soul of a New Machine. I'm sorry, Fear is the Mind Killer. So then going into demanufacture, from 1992 all the way to 1994, we just saw the destruction of Los Angeles. We had riots, the Rodney King riots, right? Where people were shooting each other. There was looting. It was brutal. National Guard was on the streets. We seen people shooting at each other. We physically seen that. We were actually down there doing a photo shoot only a couple of blocks away from where that happened that day. So when we got home that afternoon, we turned the TV like, oh my God, we were just there. And there's a riot going on, going crazy. And then it just exploded. So that's one. Then two, we had these massive fires in Los Angeles. And then three, we had this pouring of rain that created these mudslides on the mountain, and it kind of killed people. So that's the third disaster. And then in 1994, there was an earthquake that hit LA, the Northridge earthquake. And it was a big earthquake, and it just demolished a bunch of buildings. And so we saw the destruction of Los Angeles. So that was, you know, where I came up with the title Demanufacture, because I was thinking, what's the opposite of manufacture? Demanufacture, to basically, you know, take apart. And so that's kind of like how I saw Los Angeles. And I figured, okay, that is going to be the title of the record, and this is how it's what it means. You know what I mean? And these are the things that influence us. Yes, besides the movies, it was actually Los Angeles in general.
Is it depressing that 25 years on, so much of what you spoke about could have been in the last month? Because I've got to say, like, I've heard Demanufactured more times than I've eaten hot dinners, right? Like, I know that record inside out. But listening to it at the weekend and the intro of Hunter Killer, I found really chilling, like, for where we are right now.
Yes. It's basically being hunted for who you are. You know what I mean? Me being Hispanic, even in Los Angeles, I've experienced a lot of racism, not just in LA, but just actually around the world. First time I went to England, I've experienced a little bit of racism there too. I'd rather not get into it, but I did experience in some of the media there, the way they described me was pretty, nowadays could be pretty racist, but I just kind of like shrugged it off, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Like, especially so I was 13 in 1996, right, when I discovered this music and fell head over heels in it. And I remember, like, the type of photos that you were in the mid 90s was fucking wild, Dino.
Well, you know, me being from Los Angeles, you know, I knew a lot of porn stars.
Yeah,
porn actresses, and so somehow the media found out about it, and they would always request that I would take photos of them. So that's what I did.
And how was the vibe within the band when you were creating this record? Because I was reading something at the weekend where Burton was professing that, like, he wasn't really a metal guy, right? Which is why he has that totally different approach to vocals for that time. And I'll level with you, Dino. As a kid, I was like, there's no way that drummer is playing that. There is no way that drummer is playing that for real. And then I saw Fear Factory and was like, no, he is. Like, what was the vibe like within the band when you were recording Demanufacture? Like, excitement?
Oh, 100% excitement. I mean, we had just got home from touring Soul of a New Machine. And we were on tour with Sepultura back in 1994. And
nice.
When we came home, we were just excited to do a new record, you know, because, you know, we were kind of getting tired of playing, you know, the songs of Soul of a New Machine. So we wanted to, like, write some new songs right away. And just the vibe was really exciting because we knew that we were creating something different. We knew that we were, we knew that we needed to really focus on these songs and writing something different. So that was the vibe. That was how we felt, and we were excited every time we kind of, you know, it's kind of like discovering something. You know what I mean? You just you get excited.
And now we're in 2020, right? And there's Fear is the Mind Killer and Remanufacture were just things that we didn't see in the world of rock and metal. Like, you were doing that, and even Metallica were getting Moby to do remixes in that mid-90s period. Like, it was a quite wild time. Where we are in 2020, right? Like, Jamie from Code Orange was just on the show, and we were talking about ASMR techniques and all these kind of electronic elements that are being thrown into their music now. Do you think that that's a large part of Fear Factory's legacy? That when you listen to metal and you hear the electronics and all those kind of things. Like, to me, it's exactly, if you were that age now, I only had an album and an EP out, like that's totally where I could imagine Fear Factory being in the modern era.
Well, we did exactly what we wanted to do, and we knew at that time that there wasn't a lot of bands doing it. And I'm glad that bands like Code Orange now are really into that. They've definitely developed their own style, which is really cool. And I could tell that they're fans of a lot of the past electronic industrial music, you know, because I've seen them wear Fear Factory shirts, Frontline Assembly shirts, you know.
Yeah,
I've seen them do that, and I see them give us compliments before, and that's really cool because they've definitely are the future of what this music has become.
And what's cooking? Last question? What's cooking creatively at the moment, Dino? What have you got going on? Are you writing anything for any particular project?
Well, during obviously this quarantine era, definitely have a lot more time to write music. I'm almost done with my other side band called Asesino, which means assassin in Spanish, and it's basically like a grind death project that I have with Tony Campos, who's in Static X, and Emilio Marquez, who's also in the band called Possessed. So we have this project band. It's going to be our third record. So we're finishing that up. I've been working on my own project as well. No name for it yet. I've been auditioning singers through video, of course. And I've got like over 300 people who wanted to be a part of this new project. And so going through all those singers is a lot of work. So I'm working on that. And let's see what the future holds for Fear Factory.
So it's just open-ended. Like if something comes up, great. Because like I live for an obsolete tour, Dino. I'll be honest. I saw Demanufacturing full. I live for an obsolete tour in a couple of years.
Well, most people know, most of our fans know that we've been plagued with lawsuits. And so that's been preventing the band from doing anything.
Gotcha. All right, yeah, man. And the second the word legal comes in, I shit my pants and shut the interview there. Dino, like all the best with the new project and the new band. And like whenever you're launching anything, let me know and come on the show and hang out and tell us all about it, man.
And thank you for having me on. And I appreciate you giving Demanufacture some attention.
Oh, mate, like I will flash on the screen after this, me in a rehearsal room at 15 rocking a Fear Factory hoodie because lifelong.
By the way, that record that you have in the back right there of AC/DC,
yeah,
If You Want Blood, You Got It. That was my first record I ever bought.
Come on. And Corey was on earlier talking about how Bon Scott era AC/DC has influenced some of his solo records. So high fives all round for Bon Scott era AC/DC. Nice. Dino, nice. I'll see you around Los Angeles soon, man.
All right, have a good one, man. Thank you.
What an awesome week of this show. Thank you to Dino Cazares, to Corey Taylor, to Robb Flynn, Mark Heylmun from Suicide Silence, and Jamie Morgan from Code Orange. Don't forget, Suicide Silence, full live set happening this Saturday, notfest.com and the Notfest YouTube channel, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. back in the UK, and 11 p.m. Central European time. Suicide Silence live from Orange County in 2015, only on notfest.com. And if I told you that next week the bill for this show is every bit as stacked as this week, I hope you believe me, because I'll be back next Tuesday. This is Mosh Talks with me, Beez. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you again next Tuesday. See you later. Bye.